So, hi everyone, I'm Cheryl Durrant. I'm a former Army officer and Director of Preparedness and Mobilisation in the Australian Department of Defence. So, I've been exercising for pretty much my entire life. And now, since I've left the Army and Defence, I'm still exercising with community groups in northwest Tasmania. You can pretty much look at everything in an exercise. They can look at skills, you can look at networking, you can build shared awareness, you meet new people, you find out things you didn't know, you get to work with the people you're going to work with when a disaster actually hits. There's nothing too small that exercises can't pick up. But for me, the biggest thing, and which is why I think exercises are so important, is they deliver that aha moment where something that you should have known about or you haven't thought about becomes obvious and becomes important. So there are a number of new things in this handbook. Firstly, there's a whole new chapter on exercise context. And I think this is important because it brings in a greater and stronger linkages to systemic disaster risk reduction and disaster risk management. It also has got a new section on ethics, so we're starting to think about exercising ethically. And it's got stronger linkages to the excellent work that other AIDR handbooks have done with exercising with community, particularly the Community Recovery Exercise Toolkit. So there's been a lot of learnings and a lot of community-led content. We got excellent feedback from our focus group. And one of the key things was evaluation. And previously we'd handled evaluation as a chapter right at the end of the handbook, which sometimes meant that evaluation was not considered right up the front where it should be. Now, I'm an evaluator by practice, and for me, it's really important that evaluation is part of the concept phase of the exercise and part of the planning phase of the exercise and basically supports the whole exercising cycle. And so that's one area where we've strengthened the existing content and made it easier to find, or you find it in the right place. And another thing we've done is some structural change. Previously, we didn't have downloadable templates. We now have downloadable templates. We also tried to balance the handbook, which, like all of these handbooks, has a wide audience. So it's very difficult to get it simple if you just want the simple stuff with not too much complexity. And at the same time, for those who are advanced practitioners, still give them something that's useful. So we've got a new section at the front of each chapter that just says, what are the inputs to this phase? What do you do? What are the outputs? And we've also given boxes to dive deeper if someone is really interested in exploring more about evaluation or ethics or any of the concepts. The last point I'd like to make about the new content is we've recognised that exercises can be complex on many scales. And we've got this new diagram that sort of lets you see complexity on multiple axes, not just two. It's a really good tool to use if you're facing uncertainty or you've got a challenge in the future that won't be like the past. And so as we're moving into quite unprecedented challenges and integrated risk, the hypothetical exercise, I think, comes into its own in exploring those spaces. We also reflected that communities don't necessarily have the capacity and resources to pull together a complex exercise in the way that emergency management or defence departments can. So what we've done is a community hypothetical exercising toolkit, which reflects that anyone in the community can simply ask what if or why. And those are the two critical questions for a hypothetical exercise. And so we've tried to give the community support by just a simple step-by-step guide for those wanting to do a community hypothetical exercise, but also twinned with a facilitator's guide, because facilitation itself is critical for hypothetical exercises. It's the key role, and having a good facilitator, in my experience, is the difference between a successful exercise or an unsuccessful one. You've read all the lessons learned, you've done the research, you've read the case studies, and you think we're on top of this, and then suddenly, and some of the real critical ones, suddenly, obviously in defence, we're all able-bodied people. And when we're sort of trying to work out how an elderly woman with a walking stick and a dog can get on a naval ship to evacuate. So it's got to be exercise. You can't really know this unless you've tried it. And things like wheelchairs, will wheelchairs fit through doors or not fit through doors? So there's a whole lot of the most vulnerable in society that need to be included in exercising, and because most of the responders tend to be fitter, younger, more athletic. But we tend not to have walking sticks, and we'll be carrying dogs when we're practicing. And so getting the community involved it's the only really way to surface that, because you can read about it. I read about wheelchairs for ages. Theoretically, I understand how difficult it might be for someone in that circumstance, but then actually practicing it in real life and talking to real people about their experience is just so important in the learning.